Greetings, everyone. I just want to encourage you to take time today, take your shoes off, go ground in the yard. If it's nice outside, stand in the grass and let your nervous system reset. It is so vitally important. I do that by spending time with God, and I just know that I can get caught up in priorities. And yes, sometimes there are immediate priorities that will need to be taken care of immediately, but there are also a lot of priorities that can come in and start to get piled into that same folder of this has to happen now. And I feel like I have to clear my plate so that I can go spend time with God or give my nervous system a reset. And I think I've learned that lesson the hard way far too many times. In fact, just yesterday, I had an uptick in my nervous system that came across as anxiety, and I didn't really feel safe. And a big problem with that for me is that I'm a father and a husband, and how can I expect the people around me to trust me if I can't trust myself? How can I expect them to feel safe with me if I don't feel safe myself? And so, um, we live in a world of intensity. It's ramping up really fast in the technology, and and I really don't watch the news because it just kind of, I don't know why they call it the news when it's the same old crap, but it just seems like it wants to, we have so much distraction in our culture, even phones. And so I'm starting to resonate with a lot more creators on YouTube, less social media platforms. Mostly on YouTube, and because I find community here, and I'm finding myself drawn more and more to creators that don't just have information to feed my mind that I feel can help me in my life, but to creators who are calm and exude presence. Those are my heroes, because um, there are so many stories in spiritual literature in the Bible that I'm reminded of. Been thinking a lot about David and Goliath. My wife and I have been watching that, and that this Goliath inside, this intense, huge, um, it can become so big that I can become frozen, like the army, the Israelites that wouldn't do anything. And then David knew he had faith in God, and that faith in God comes first for me now. It has to come first. Uh, you know, I was crying yesterday and weeping, and um, you know, Jesus in the garden cried, wept. Uh, and then I think about the stuff that, he faced, and how there's always been trials, there's always been Goliaths, there's always been suffering and fear to contend with. And I don't need to follow fear. I don't need to give in to that. I can just be present, be where I am, and stay with God no matter what. And so for me, ultimately, I think Jesus is the ultimate example of staying in that state of forgiveness. Who knows what was happening to his nervous system during that, but I know that it takes a calm nervous system for me to stay in compassion and empathy. And I feel that there's intuition is huge, huge for us now. Um, Intuition is how I hear the still small voice. And that's where the sobriety comes in. That's where spirituality is going to become increasingly so important, because that's who you are. You are spirit. And we just got to calm down. We got to put that calm first. That anxiety is an indicator that we need to actually stop, not go, because it can send us into fight or flight, and we will start to create in ways that are not only ineffective but can actually be destructive. And yeah, and then also remembering how much you are loved. And I was talking to my cousin this morning about a paradox that we all face, and that's that we are on this journey together, and yet we are also on it alone. So when I suffer alone. My anxiety is felt in this body, right? And and maybe, you know, those who love me can feel it too. So it's also important for me to retreat, and before I connect with them again sometimes, and not reach out and rely on them to save me, but for relatable support. But ultimately, community is so healthy, so helpful. But ultimately, even in the greatest, most healing, spirit focused communities, it's going to come back to me and my nervous system having to calm down and take authority. Think about that, authority, taking authority over my nervous system. Where does authority come from? It comes from the author, the authentic author of this entire experience, of which I am a character on the stage. And I know that that authority has written a good story for me. And I got to be open to that story and hearing that story and knowing where God is leading me, which is why I place so much importance on a sober mind. One thing I can tell you is that on my sober journey, I have had the so-called psychic change that they talk about in recovery. It really goes one of two ways, doesn't it? I used to reach for substances, for alcohol, to relieve me of my suffering, of my pain, to help me out of fear, out of anxiety, only temporarily, only to return even worse than I was before, because I never really took the time to go to God or to do anything about it. I thought I was going to God, but when you're on psychedelics, are you really going to God? Because you know, I really like Kyle Cease, and something he said that he admitted he'd done himself, and he even said it was embarrassing, and I've done this too, is having drug experiences and feeling that you've learned something or had some exclusive insight into another dimension that is, you know, gives you some kind of authority to speak, and then you go out and you want to share it with the world and tell everyone about it. Yeah. If it can't be shared, if it's not relatable, what's the point? And I feel like only love can be shared, because when I had a sack of drugs or alcohol, when I shared it, it depleted, it went away, my supply went away. But when I share love, it multiplies, and people can feel the experience of love, which is really what I aim to do on this channel, is to come from the heart and to be centered in love, and to hopefully that fire, it's like a candle lighting a candle, right? Hopefully that fire of love will spread. And I actually don't even need to say hopefully, I know it will. I see it happening all over the planet. So we live in very polarized times, and a lot of times, if when we think about polarization, one reason I don't pay attention too much to politics is because if you think about polarization from a political perspective, you might look at it as two different political parties, which are like, you pick the lesser of two evils. But polarization is actually God versus not God, love versus not love. And I don't believe not love actually exists. And I know that's a big statement. That's another video, I think, completely. But none of that seems real to me. None of it lasts. Even suffering caused by so-called not love is temporary. Even if it kills you, it's temporary. But when I take time to go ground in the yard, to come from the heart, to center in the heart that God gave me, and to invite the Spirit into my heart to reside with me for a moment, I start to feel that love, that eternal flame, and it feels more real than anything in this world. And so the sobriety, back to the sobriety, I've had that psychic change to the thought of doing drugs now, the thought of drinking is terrifying to me, because it is a subtle path. The sobriety path is a subtle path. Yes, some people may have the big, explosive, awakening. I heard one YouTuber, I liked a lot of what he was saying the other day, but then he said something that just he was talking about he was saying he was going to ruin some spiritual truths for you. And I agreed with him that, like, a lot of people think it has to be this, oh, I understand everything now. Right. Um, he called it boring though. And I think that's just another perspective. Sober, honest, God is reality, truth. I say this a lot on this channel. God is reality. God is truth. God is it. Okay, it's not a religious thing. You don't have to be religious or honestly even spiritual. But mind is both a receptor and a projector. And I think the projector part of the mind gets overlooked a lot, how we project illusions onto our experience that are not reality. And then when two people or more get together and they start parroting those views back and forth to each other, it strengthens that illusion. And so how do we open the veil? How do we look inside? How do we get past that? And for me, it's a sober path. And I don't care how long it takes, because sobriety is also synonymous with honesty. And I feel like honesty is the path to truth, because it's truth. And so if I'm carrying illusions and lies and resentment, and I would throw shame and guilt into those, because a lot of times the shame and guilt we carry is about illusions we believe. Which brings me back to the point of this video, taking time to let those go, to go get grounded in God. Your body also is an bioelectric system, and your feet, when you place them on the ground, you get grounded. You can feel it, even if you just take a few minutes to do it. So I think that's probably enough for now. Thank you for being with me if you've made it this far. I am so grateful to be on this journey with you and to be a part of this world and this community and all that I can be grateful for. And just remembering that no matter how bad it gets, all that is temporary, and this love we share, I really think we're moving in. I was about to say the love is eternal, and I know that can sound maybe a little cliche, maybe a little woo-woo out there, but I really believe that's what this time is about. Is this guy right here is Meher Baba. He actually helped me get sober a lot. On his samadhi, his tomb where he's buried, it says mastery and servitude. And I think we're starting to find that. It's in the story of Jesus. It's in so many stories, but it really comes down to becoming love itself. And love, a friend of mine, Laurent, likes to say love is a verb. Love is a verb, so it's not a noun. It can't be seen, touched. It can be experienced. We can get glimpses of it by seeing other people in love. But until we have that direct experience with the love in our hearts, how can we know it's real? And that direct experience will bring that reality. And so, yeah, thank you for being here. If you would, please subscribe, like the video. It helps the channel, and it helps us stay connected. And I would, even more than that, what I really love is your comments. If you want to connect with me, reach out with me. I check the comments. I would love to continue these conversations. I'm going to keep making these videos and showing up. And that's what I know I'm being called to do here. And thank you. It really helps me. So you've been in service to me. You've been loving me by being here and taking part in this conversation. And I love you. So have a wonderful day.